How are you all doing with your Lenten suggestion of giving up suffering? Anybody remember anything about that? Anybody working on that at all? Have you been noticing maybe all the ways that you are suffering so that you can start to eradicate it? Maybe because you are attached to things or people being a certain way, maybe because you feel a sense of lack of friends maybe, or of financial security, of love, whatever, any kind of lack, or maybe because you just don't have the life that you think you should have by this point. Maybe because of crazy traffic. Maybe because of the train on Metairie Road that is there every 10 minutes at 8 in the morning when there are 4 huge schools trying to convene. Yes, I've often wondered why they planned it that way. Well, since the Drepung Tibetan monks will be here with us next week, we started talking last week about the 4 noble truths of Buddhism, which are that, first of all, life is suffering. Secondly, that there's a cause to this suffering. Thirdly, there's an end to that suffering. And fourth, that there is a path to follow, which helps us avoid future suffering. And so last week we talked mainly about the first noble truth, which was that life is suffering, and how important it is for us to be present to the fact that we do suffer, which means that we are not happy and peaceful all the time. That means we suffer. We talked about how common it is for us to try to escape from that suffering through denial, staying frantically busy maybe, consuming too much alcohol maybe, drugs, anything that keeps us from dealing with our suffering. So the first step is, of course, to be very present to our suffering so that we can get to the second noble truth, which is to find the cause of that suffering so that we can end it. And that, the cause of suffering, is what we're going to talk about today. I'd like to share with you a quote from the Buddhist scholar Dr. Walt Anderson's seminal book, A Westerner's Guide to Tibetan Buddhism, which was my text when I was at the Naropa Institute. And I can tell you, this guy really knows about spiritual tools. He says, ordinary existence is an unsatisfactory state in which people make themselves miserable as a result of a basic misunderstanding of their own nature. And there exists another state, nirvana, which is a release from this misery and a different way of being in the world. And he went on for a whole summer explaining how that is possible. And it is possible. The Buddhists say that the cause of suffering is clearly us, our thinking, which, of course, we can correct because it's our own thinking. Now, I know that's easier said than done, and I don't want to talk in glittering generalities here. So let me give you an example of a situation. In fact, a whole day of situations that could cause suffering. The day was this last Wednesday, my last Wednesday. I'd been dealing with the internet service at my house for quite a while, and I finally got a Cox cable man out there to fix it Saturday. Well, Wednesday, it went out again. Another morning of juggling high school French classes and Cox cable. Then at work, I opened up my computer in the morning and the screen was completely black. I had deadlines, I had class roles to report, things I had to finish, minute by minute schedule for the 9 Tibetan monks that are coming here, some of whom are coming here next week. They'll be at my school. I had the whole scheduled deadline to do, but no computer. With the 0 free time I had anyway, I managed to prevail upon the tech department to put my hard drive in a new computer. Okay, back to my classroom to catch up and continue trying to teach. I'm thrilled that something's finally there on my computer screen, but when I opened it up, and really looked at it, what was really there? This frowny face that was on the screen it was the same frowny face that had been on my personal computer at home. No internet service. Back to the tech office to get it fixed. 30 minutes later, I'm back in my classroom. I turn it on, and after all that, there's the same frowny face. Why do computers always work when the tech guy touches it and then not when I do? I undo all the wires and the cables for the third time, run down to beg the tech office to help me yet again. By the way, did I forget to tell you that I am president of the I Hate Technology Club at my school? Okay, an hour and a half later, it's done. Computer on and internet working. I'm aware that this hour and a half will come out of my sleep time at night, but okay, it's fixed anyway. Meanwhile, the Cox cable people have rebooted my modem at home, and it's fixed too. Okay. Then at my next break, I get a call from the installers of my new dishwasher that it had been installed that morning, and in the midst of the internet problems on two fronts, it was finished. It got installed. But they had to turn on or off the main water valve to the house, whatever that is, and it broke and it was leaking. It seems that I will have to now coordinate the plumber that I have to get with the Jefferson Parish Water Board to fix that. Have you ever tried to coordinate Jefferson Parish Water Board and your plumber? In addition, it costs $1,750. But I have no choice. Okay, I finally got home after work, and I emptied out that new dishwasher that got installed, but it hadn't dried the dishes. I had gotten rid of the old one because it didn't wash the dishes. The new one didn't dry the dishes. And the new washing machine that I got installed was so noisy that my 100-pound Doberman is a nervous wreck because he thinks somebody's trying to break in the front door, right? Dobermans don't like that. So at last, it's 5:00 p.m., and I get to go to church. Okay, for the Course of Miracles class. It's Wednesday night, right? The peaceful sanctuary here, and the 17 wonderful, spiritually committed souls whom I love with all my heart await me. At last, peace and joy. I get to Unity, all excited about entering God's house, but I can't open the front door because there's a key broken in the lock, right? For the second time this month. So I go to the back door, but it won't work either. It's all jimmied. I thought the only problem at Unity was the CD recorder from last week's truth lesson, which I needed to record them so we can put them on the website. It had not recorded last week, so it had to be fixed this week. I thought that was the only problem. By the way, the sound system got fixed Friday night, and I will record it last week if you bought a CD. Then, on the way home from the Course of Miracles class, my cell phone goes dead while I'm counseling a dear friend in Austin who is depressed. I don't consider till later the irony of this friend has a PhD in psychology. Frankly, I could have used some help Wednesday night. When I get home to recharge the phone, and I remember that the Doberman Pinscher has eaten my charger, and that I had borrowed one from one of our parishioners. Where did I put it, though? I finally found the borrowed charger, but alas, it didn't work. So there I am with 17 issues to deal with, a huge deadline, and I'm without a phone. Oh well, let's call it a day. I'm going to sleep. Nothing more I can do. But oh no, 3 hours later, I wake up in the middle of the night with this horrible nightmare, which I remember, about a dear, dear friend of mine who I count on constantly, who had totally double-crossed me. I wake up upset, mad, feeling defeated, and honestly, I can't remember if it really happened or if I dreamed it. I wasn't sure, but I was sure mad and upset. When I finally sorted that all out, And I'd started to get upset with myself because of the reaction in the dream and after the dream. I've done all this spiritual work, and it seemed like it had just gone right out the window. I was furious with my friend, no compassion. And of course, nothing had even happened. Then on top of everything, I couldn't get back to sleep, and I had to get up at 6:30 as usual. And all that when I had deadlines and work and issues to deal with that would have been difficult to deal with even in the best of all possible worlds. Thank you, Voltaire. Oh, and did I tell you that I'd been physically under the weather too, which is a very rare thing for me, so it all seemed even worse. Okay, we all agree I was suffering Wednesday? Okay, thank you. It certainly seemed like the cause of suffering was all the issues I was dealing with out there, right? Everybody will agree with that. We're programmed that way. Anyone would have supported that. But deep down inside, I knew better. The second noble truth of Buddhism says that we are the cause of our suffering. Our wrong views, our attachments to people and things being a certain way, right? Okay, the reality of my suffering I had accepted. But the second noble truth, which is that there is a cause to that suffering and that that cause is always us, our thinking, our stinking thinking, was a hard pill for me to swallow. Of course, these were all outward things that were causing my suffering, right? Couldn't have been me. I was certainly thinking at that time that my suffering was due to outer circumstances, but that was about as logical as being mad at my friend. When you think about it, my thinking that the outward circumstances were the cause of my suffering were about as logical as being mad at my friend for double-crossing me in my dream. All is illusion. So how do we identify the real cause of our suffering so that we can deal with it? I knew that the cause of suffering was always in my thinking and nothing outside of me, but it sure did not feel that way Wednesday. Well, I'll share with you how I tried to find the cause of my suffering. Maybe it can help some of you in the future with some tools that you need to deal with similar issues. First of all, I realized that all these issues had one thing in common when I really thought about it, aside from the fact that I'd made issues, or more accurately, phenomenon, into problems which cause suffering. All these issues were what we would call first world problems, right? Internet not working at work, internet not working at home, new dishwasher and washing machine that need tweaking, plumbers, workmen, highly trained techies to fix everything, a tech problem at a fabulous job that I love, a dear friend at that job who made it possible for me to do what it took to get all of the home and work issues dealt with. My dear friend from childhood, the psychologist, still in my life. An amazing church that just has a minor key and recording issue and otherwise is a beautiful, comfortable, amazing place full of amenities and completely committed spiritual people. I was blessed, and I needed to realize that. I wasn't defeated. I had so much to be thankful for, and those issues should have helped me quickly. It didn't, but now I do understand. They help me realize how much I have to be thankful for. And the proof of the pudding, all the issues got solved. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. They did in this particular issue, but it doesn't really matter. And when you think about it, it was entirely my programming that was making me suffer by making me think that everything was supposed to work perfectly all the time. That life is supposed to be carefree and that I shouldn't have to be dealing with issues like the rest of the world or something. I started thinking about my time in India, where the electricity only worked for a few hours a day, every day. Not to mention that the surges would completely blow out your computer and cell phone from time to time. And there was rarely any internet service, and most Indians would have given anything to have had a job like mine to be giving them trouble, or a comfortable place to work or live even. Think 120 degree, 90% humidity, even when it's not raining, and never any safe water. My problems were first world problems. Yes, my home, my church, my workplace were cool and dry and safe and lovely. I had a workplace and a home and a place to worship. My friends were wonderful, even if I had a nightmare about one. I had some issues to deal with, like we all do, and I really had absolutely no reason to suffer. Just deal with the issues. And the suffering was taking so much energy that I couldn't deal with them as effectively as I would have. And further, I realized that a minute, think about this, a minute is a minute in life if we are being present. Whether we are emptying garbage cans for the city or doing brain surgery, a minute is a minute if we're just there for it. It's all about being present and knowing, as A Course in Miracles says, that nothing has any meaning at all except the meaning that we give it. Whether all was going totally according to my wishes or whether I was making a few extra phone calls to rearrange it to be that way, it was all a chance for me to grow, to learn about myself and the world, and to practice staying calm and in a meditative state. Bring on the issues. Practice makes perfect. I'm always asking for opportunities to grow. Well, I guess I asked too fervently because I got it all at once, but I wasn't quite prepared to use them. I'll be better prepared next time, which is why I'm sharing this with you, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I was seeing the stick in the road and projecting my fear onto it, thinking it was a snake, and turning the stick in the road into a snake and then reacting to it, right? I had made the individual issues and events into this huge self-defeating phenomenon. Oh, woe is me. This is my life. Why me? Life is so difficult. I was making a snake out of the stick and suffering because of my fear of it. Reality check. I have some new appliances, a chance to fix some plumbing before it becomes a huge problem, apparently. Some minor issues to deal with, like going around to the back door of the church and getting over my anger toward a friend whose only transgression was in my dream. The snake was only a stick. And then there was the epiphany that I had taken these issues and linked them, like we often do, to similar issues from my past, all the things like that that had happened in my past, and had come up with, my life is so difficult, woe is me. You ever done that? Start hooking into all the prior experiences. But in actuality, I just needed to make a few phone calls on a phone that a friend had helped me fix in about 5 minutes by locating a new charger, a second new charger. I even learned a thing or two, like don't leave things on the floor that my otherwise perfect Doberman pinscher might deem a plastic toy to chew on, which could prevent bigger problems in the future. Bottom line, my attachment to the way things ought to be and to be looked at, I needed to get in touch with the fact that I was attached to that so that in the future I would be better prepared and I wouldn't suffer when similar issues arise. And they always arise, maybe not that many in one day. Yes, the cause of my suffering was that I was attached to the way I had been programmed to think things ought to be. Always the cause of our suffering, the Buddhists say, attachment. And then there's the fact that we often, sometimes even kind of like our suffering because we get sympathy. I got a lot of sympathy today. Maybe I was unconsciously thinking about telling the story to people and getting a little sympathy. Often it adds drama to our otherwise uneventful lives. Everyone likes a good horror film, right? Or worse, we start thinking that our suffering is normal and we accept it. But it's not normal. We have control of our thinking. We can meditate and reason and ask for God's help, and we can find how our thinking is making us suffer, and we can avoid it in similar situations in the future. Also, this too shall pass, right? It's Sunday. It's gone. It can all pass and be a thing of the past with a little attention directed toward our thinking and how we convert just neutral atoms and neutral phenomenon into certain categories and then deem it suffering and then react to it, turning the stick in the road into a snake. I submit that the Buddhists are right. It is always our thinking that makes us suffer. We just have to be present enough, which is one of the points of meditation. It's very important to meditate regularly to discover exactly what our thinking is making snakes out of. Yes, for this Lenten season, I fervently hope that you will work on giving up your suffering, all of it, by meditating, by asking God to help you see things differently, and using your thinking skills to reason it out and see how you are making snakes out of the sticks in your life. You can see life more clearly that way, and you can start avoiding a lot of misery. It's never what's happening out there that's causing our suffering. Never. You are not at the mercy of life. You aren't at the mercy of life. You are your own ship's captain. You are free to choose your reactions and thus free yourself from outside restrictions at all times. Next week, we'll be welcoming the Tibetan Drepung monks from the Drepung Gomang Monastery in India. They're going to be doing the 11 o'clock meditation for the 11 o'clock service. So it seems like a really good time to use the unity teachings and the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism as tools for getting rid of your suffering. And I submit that this state of nirvana, or we call it in the West, peace and joy, is completely attainable with just a little desire and a little effort. May you go through this week looking closely as you never have before to the cause of your suffering, large and small, keeping foremost in your mind that the fact is that there is nothing and no one out there really causing it. You're free. You're free to let it all go. It's a choice. Just concentrate on the true cause, which is your thinking. May this Lenten season be the time when you learn to get free completely of your suffering and attain the peace and the joy that you so deserve. Amen.